Good to see every single one of you. Welcome to all those watching on our live webcast around Acadiana, around the country and around the world. We're so glad that you tuned in today. I'm so excited as we're starting part 4 of our series, Words Matter. Pastor Chris and I are taking you through a journey that I think is so important. So I want you to get something to write with, something that we can begin, because I think there's some important elements here that is going to help every one of us in every aspect of life as we continue on this series. It was the UK pundit and playwright George Bernard Shaw who was really telling us the truth when he said this: the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. This is so important for us to understand because so many times we think we're communicating something and it really is being understood a different way. One of the things that we do here at OSC to explain what Bernard Shaw was saying was that at the end of this service, and we do it at the end of every service, is we have the opportunity to personally pray with people. That if you are here today and there maybe is something personal you want to pray about, we'll have our prayer teams here, and instead of exiting, you can come down here. They'll hear what maybe a need is, and then they'll go ahead and pray for you. One of my favorite stories is another church that does this very same thing. Their prayer partners all come down here. Some people are exiting, some people come down for extra prayer. So one man was coming down to be prayed for, and one of the things that they do at the end of the service, they have music playing while they're being prayed for and exiting out of the sanctuary. So the man came down and got in front of one of the real faith believers that just believes for miracles, came down and just simply goes, "Hey, I need prayer for my hearing." He didn't miss a beat. He put his hands on his ears and started praying for his hearing, and he just going, "God, right now," and literally shaking his head, "God, you're going to heal this man right now." And he just looked at him and just goes, "Amen." And he goes, "How's your hearing?" He goes, "I don't know. It's going to happen Wednesday at the courthouse. So I really don't understand that it's going to take place." Okay. So many times, here's the hurdle. We don't listen to understand. We usually only listen to reply. And this is so important to understand because I think one of the things that I'm learning, and I love what our senior pastor, Pastor Jacob, does. I have seen him do this probably dozens of times. He's done it with me, and I think it's genius. Listen, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're a CEO, a parent, or whether it's just in a relationship that you're as a single person or even with your spouse, one of the things that Pastor Jacob will always do, that I've adopted the same principle, is when we're having an important discussion, he'll always pause and say this: "What do you hear me saying to you?" And that is really important. Saying that to your children, saying that to each other, saying that to your spouse, because what you're doing is you're making sure that you are communicating correctly. It's my job as a parent, as a husband, as a pastor, to make sure that to give definition and clarity and not to leave things open for misinterpretation. We said words matter, and we've been saying that every single week. Words matter. And last week we even gave you the big reason. Pastor Chris started off with the big reason. Why do words matter? If we're saying words matter, why is that? And it all goes back to Proverbs 18:21. Because words have life and words have death in them. And we have to make sure that we understand how important this is. But one of the things I'm learning is this, is sometimes I forget that it's not just words we say, but how many know it's how we say those words is just important. How we communicate those words has just as much weight. And that's why one of the things that I feel like has been on my heart to share with you is something that's been a challenge for me. And I want to talk to you today, and I want you to get this down because we're going to keep coming back to this phrase. I want to talk to you about what I'm calling wordless words. Wordless words. I want to talk to you about this because we forget that we are communicating many times without even saying very much. You don't even need words to communicate. What do you mean, Pastor Tim, by wordless words? Let me explain. Wordless words is the ability to say a lot with few words or even sometimes no words. Wordless words are the ability to communicate without saying very much, with either few words or with no words. Let me explain. How many know a facial expression can communicate a whole bunch? A rolling of the eyes. Some of you are already looking down and some of you are shaking. How many know a tone of voice can communicate something? And how many know that, listen, that even silence can communicate something. Not even saying any words, and you're communicating a whole bunch of things. And this is what's so important. And probably one of the things that makes this so important is where it happens in the Bible. Because it happens, the story I want to share with you today happens between a husband and a wife. And this is such a key story because it's a critical time in Israel's history. The king is brand new, and he even has a brand new marriage. The king's name is David, and the wife's name is Michal. It was Saul's daughter. David is married to Saul's daughter, Michal. So it's David and Michal. And it's the relationship between a husband and a wife. And this is such an important thing to emphasize because that relationship between the wife and the husband is the second most important relationship on the planet. One of the things that Cindy and I will say to each other all the time is, your voice is the second most important voice next to Jesus. And we have to understand that. Cindy's words are the second most important thing in my life next to Jesus' words. And we have to make sure that we're taking care of those words. That's why when we don't take care of that relationship with God, then this relationship gets messed up and sabotaged. The greatest gift I can give to my children is a healthy marriage. The greatest gift I can give to my children is a healthy marriage. It brings peace to the home, it brings stability to their lives, and it's important for me that I'm always working on that relationship. And I want to tell you the story today for just a few moments, the story of David and Michal in 2 Samuel chapter 6, because this is really key. So let me just give you a background, and then we're going to jump right into the verses, and we're going to talk about wordless words today. So one of the key things that Israel has to have within them, because they feel like this is a representation of the presence of God, was the Ark of the Covenant. You know the Ark of the Covenant, Harrison Ford, it's in Washington, D.C., but then they came out with number 4 and they stole it, some Russian lady, and it's somewhere in Africa. So you have the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant to the children of Israel meant the presence of God. They felt like if we have the ark, we've got God's presence with us. Well, here's the problem. The Philistines, decades earlier, went into Israel, ravaged Israel, and stole the Ark of the Covenant. Well, when they stole the Ark of the Covenant and brought it back to the Philistine country, it was wreaking havoc there, and they got rid of it. People were getting sick, so they got rid of it. And it ends up in the backyard of this guy named Obed-Edom for 2 decades. I mean, it's just sitting there. It's sitting in the backyard. Who knows? Kids may be throwing balls off of it. Who knows what this Ark of the Covenant. But he's surprised. He goes, hey, for 20 years my house has been blessed. This is pretty cool. Well, when David becomes king, brand new marriage, the country has just lost Saul. Now David goes, the first thing we want to do is we want to bring the Ark of the Covenant back. 20 plus years later, David goes with a bunch of men. It wasn't a battle. It was just going, that belongs in Jerusalem. They grab the Ark of the Covenant. They bring it back. And it probably is the first time David has ever seen the Ark of the Covenant. And I could just see him getting excited going, oh my goodness, this is the Ark of the Covenant and we're bringing it back. It was so exciting. They're coming back playing horns and trumpets, dancing. They're celebrating that the presence of God, the Ark of the Covenant, is back in Israel. It's back in Jerusalem, and they're bringing it right to the holy city, the city of David, and they're rejoicing. This is where our story starts. As they're walking through the gates of Jerusalem, from the window, Michal is looking down and sees what's going on. Remember, Michal, David's wife, and now you have David walking in. Here's the story. Let me read it to you. David was dancing before the Lord with all of his might, and David was wearing a linen ephod. The Bible says, so David and all the house of Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord, shouting and the sound of the trumpet. Then it happened, as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, that Michal, the daughter of Saul, David's wife, looked out the window and saw King David leaping, dancing before the Lord, and she despised him. Some versions say had contempt in her heart for what she saw. Like, are you serious? Now it gets better. Verse 17. So they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place. David brings it in. He doesn't realize Michal's looking at him, brings it to the temple, sets it inside the tent which David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. Now he's going back to his house. So here it is. But when David returned to bless his household, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, how the king of Israel distinguished himself today, uncovered himself today in the eyes of the servant's maid as one of those foolish ones shamelessly uncovers himself. David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me above your father and above all of his house to appoint me ruler of the people of the Lord over Israel. Therefore I will celebrate before the Lord." He says, "And I will be, but the maids of whom you've spoken," he says, "with them I will be distinguished." And then it ends with this: Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. I had a friend who preached a message on this called "Women That Don't Dance Don't Have Babies." Now, this has nothing to do with anything we're about to talk about today. Catchy title, but it's not the reason. How many can say between this exchange between the King David and Michal, how many would say with me, this marriage has problems? Huge problems. Because you can tell, I'll just say this to you, I can tell when a marriage has difficulty by the way the husband and wife communicate with each other. All you got to do is just listen. And the way that they talk with each other tells you a whole lot. Why? Because this is always showing what's going on inside of here. So let me explain to you this way. So when we were pastoring in Detroit, I remember this one couple coming in for marital counseling. Talking about getting blindsided. So they walk into the office, and I knew it was tense. So they walk in, and all of a sudden she goes to him. I mean, she was mean. She just goes, "Tell him. Go ahead, tell him." And he goes, "All right." And I'm going, this is going to be good. So he goes, this is the guy. He goes, "Pastor Tim, we were in the mall. She was shopping, and I was sitting on the bench, and some nice girl walked by, and I looked at her too long, and she caught me." And so she goes, "Ha!" I go, "Okay, what's your ha?" She goes, "The Bible says if you look upon a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery. He's an adulterer, and I want a divorce." I said, hold on right there. We've got some bigger issues going on than literally mall issues, like you can't go to the mall any longer. This guy got blindsided with divorce talk, and that's what happened today. David ran into a semi into his own house. He comes home, listen to this, to bless his household, and the house explodes. He thinks, I just came from my job. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Ark of the Covenant. Why isn't everybody celebrating with me? And something took place that we've got to walk through today. Because listen to me close. What should have been a family celebration moment is now a conflict. Get this, because Michal didn't examine her heart, and David didn't give attention to what was going on in his household. Let me say that again. There was a problem. You know why? You know why there was a collision course and there was no momentum of celebration together? Is Michal didn't take care of her heart, and David didn't take care of his household and his marriage. Let me say that again. Michal didn't take care of her heart, and David didn't take care of his household. Let me say this for just a moment. Let me just get on Michal for a second. I believe David is more responsible as the leader of that household, but let me just say this about Michal. This is important. We are responsible for the condition of our own heart. You cannot blaming us. We are responsible. When something goes haywire, we've got to begin to start recognizing when that begins to happen. Listen, let me explain it this way. When something goes bad in the heart, it eventually is going to go bad in the mouth. When this gets messed up, it's going to come out. This thing, that her exploding didn't just happen. That's stuff that's not been dealt with, which is eventually going to explode. Now, folks, this is probably one of the most profound studies, and it's so simple on marriage that I think I've ever seen from Princeton. And let me just read it. In fact, I'm going to read to you how revealing this is. This is what it said. The study said half of all serious marital problems develop in the first 2 years of marriage. But yet, on average, couples who seek for counseling don't come to counseling until 7 years later. Think of that. What he's saying was, your junk happens in the first 2 years. Well, that's easy. That's not revelatory. You have two people, they're learning this. That happens. But they don't get help until 7 years later, which means it's been sitting there for 5 years. That thing is 5 years down the road before they even consider getting help. Think what would have happened if somebody would have just gone, hey, something's gotten bad in my heart. It's coming out my mouth. Let me deal with this. See, something was already in Michael's heart before the explosion took place in the house. And this is where I think this is so important and what we need to get from this story. Because I think what we're faced with when we deal with this is we've got to start to deal the right way when we're faced with those heart issues that are going on. Or let me just say it to you like this. This is what I'm learning. People don't know how to have private heart cleaning meetings so they can join in house celebrations. They don't know how to start dealing with their own heart. And so when all of a sudden people are celebrating, you can't celebrate because you're looking cross-eyed at everybody else in the room going, why are you celebrating? You're not doing this. You're not doing what's right. See, there is a verse that is so important. I want you to jot this down. Get this verse down because David wrote this, and boy, did David know what this meant. It's Psalms 19:14. And listen to these words. David says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. Now, OSC, listen to how important this is. It would have been easy just for David to say, let the words of my mouth be acceptable in your sight, O God. He didn't say that. He says, because I realized that if there could be junk deep inside that I've never said yet that needs to start to get dealt with. What David was saying was this, not just the stuff that comes out, but the stuff that's getting ready to come out, start dealing with. That's the 5-year push down of all the junk that's going on. And David was saying, just because you didn't say it, there's conversations that could be going on. Because you know what heart words are? Heart words are words that are being spoken in me, which will be eventually spoken out loud by me. You understand what David's saying? He's saying, you could be having entire conversations inside of you and look like everything's fine. And being in a marriage, everything okay? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And inside you're going, I'm going to kill him. I hate him. I'm going to die. I hope this house blows up in a bomb. And you could be thinking all that stuff. And with a smile on your face, I hope the house gets nuked. And you could be thinking that way with a smile on your face. And what David was saying is, God, it's not just the words that come out of my mouth that count, but the conversations inside of me count also. That's what he was saying. Oh, okay, so how do we deal with this? How do we begin to deal with situations, people, relationships that are bothering us, that are calling up the junk from our heart? Remember, bad heart gives bad words. That's what he was saying. How do you do that? I want you to jot this down because this is what I want to walk you through here for a second. Because I want to start with the answer before we jump into some of the issues. Get this down. When you start with God, you start with you. If you can learn to start with God, that means you're starting with you. What does that mean, Pastor Tim? Let's not start with people first. Let's start with us. If I'm sitting here and I have a problem with Pastor Chris, if Pastor Chris, every time he comes up, he's telling us to do something, go to Growth Track, go sign up in the back, go do this. No, look at the screen, give money, text this. Who does he think you're not the boss of me. And all of a sudden, if I'm getting ticked off at him, so when I go to God, you know what's interesting? Every time I go to God, God never agrees with me about people. You ever notice that? If I go, God, that Pastor Chris, God's not going, I know, I hate him too. God is never saying that. That never happens. But you know what God does? God usually goes, let's start with you first. See, the reason why we're afraid to go to God is because he knows we're going to start with us. So we keep our distance from God. Because what we do is when we're ticked at someone, we don't go to God, we go to someone else who's ticked at him. So if I know someone else is ticked at Pastor Chris, I just go to Grant. Grant, let's talk to him about Pastor Chris. Pastor Grant's going, That's it. Pastor Jovan, what do you think? We all hate him. See, when we do that, what happens is you can get your team together, but it doesn't mean it's true. Go to God and he'll start with you first, is what he does. And Pastor Chris is clapping the loudest on that right now. He's going, yeah, go to God, go to God. Let me give you a prayer that helps on this. I want to give you a prayer. And I'm telling you, if we learn to pray this prayer, and this is David's prayer. David said, I really believe if we can take this prayer that David prays, post it on the mirror of your bathroom. When you're doing your eyes up, ladies, just start praying. When you're doing your hair and whatever, just do it. Man, post it on a mirror, put it in your closet, put it on the dashboard of your car, put it on your phone. I believe if we can pray this prayer of David and get your phones ready to take a cut, but here's the deal. If we can get this prayer and say it every day and really mean it, there'll be more apologies than confrontations. There'll be more apologies than conflicts, because when you start with God, you start with you. You start with God, you start with you. Here's David's prayer. Here it says this. Two screen slides, so you have to take two pictures. God, here's the prayer. I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that's hidden within me. That means the stuff I can't see. Find out everything that may be hidden within me. Put me to the test and sift through all my anxious cares. Verse 24, see if there's any path of pain I'm walking on and lead me back to your everlasting ways, back to the path that brings me back to you. Man, that's a powerful prayer. You know what's interesting? Go back to that first slide, would you, Misty, just for a second, verse 23, this one. You know what's interesting about this? It never says, if I'm having a problem with Cindy, I'm not going, God, search Cindy's heart. Examine her through and through. Find out everything hidden in Cindy and put Cindy to this test. Oh yeah, sift through all her cares. And isn't it interesting how many times me and my shows up in that verse? Because when you start with God, you start with you. And that's where we miss it. We'll go to people, but we never start with us. And that's why David is praying to keep junk out of us. I don't think anybody said it better than when they said this. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. They sink when the water around them gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside of you. That's what's so important. That's where it starts. Michal had junk inside of her. Michal is sitting there going like, man, all the stuff. See, you can live in the middle of chaos, but that chaos doesn't have to get inside of you. And that's what that prayer does. God, protect my heart. God, I'm responsible for the condition of my own heart. So let's take the next 10, 15 minutes and close here, but I want to deal with wordless words. I want you to pay attention when that stuff is happening. And I want to take it from this story because I think this is important for all of our marriages, for all of our home life, for as parenting, as teens, as children in the house. So I want us to pay attention. Let me give you the first one. Here's the first one. Verse 16, the first wordless word I want you to pay attention to are looks. Let me just tell you how important this is. Here's David. Think about this. Michal is looking from a window. She is seething because there's stuff in her heart. She is upset because David is dancing instead of taking care of stuff in the house. David is going like, ooh, we're back. And man, and she's going like, you come back with an Ark of the Covenant, you're hanging out with your boys, and you think everything is just fine. You're walking in going like, we got the Ark, and we played some fantasy football, I'm a commissioner. And there you go back, and you got stuff to deal with in the house. What do you think you're doing? And this, the Bible says, and she looked at him, listen to these words, verse 16, she looked at him with contempt. That word, that comes from the court system. It means you're held in contempt of court when you don't treat the court correctly. It means that when you treat the judge, when you don't realize who that judge is, and you don't realize that this person is put there to be respected and honored, and when you start talking to that judge like, who do you think you are? Boom, contempt of court. And that's what it's saying, that what she did. She didn't realize how important that marriage is and to bring it up, and she just treated it like it was nothing else, like it was just a simple relation. That's not your spouse. That's not your marriage. And she looked at him with contempt. Pastor Tim, come on. That looks are wordless words. Let me tell you about it. Looks are wordless words, and let me tell you what looks communicate. Looks communicate, that's not true. They're exaggerating. He doesn't live like that. It's not that way in our home. That's what she was communicating. And looks can communicate that. I'm just telling you folks, listen to me close. It comes from the pursed lips. You know what that's like? You're talking to someone. What do you think that? Do you think that communicates like, amen, I agree with you? No, it doesn't. How about the rolling of the eyes? My kids sometimes do that. I go, is there anything on the roof? Anything on the ceiling? Because I don't think there's anything up there. I think we're talking right here as their eyes are going up. And so here's, I don't quite agree with this, but as Jim Carrey from Bruce Almighty says, behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. I don't quite agree with that. But let me just say this. These are wordless words. that your spouse says something and the eyes roll, the look on the face, or not even making eye contact. Let me explain something to you for just a second. And this is important to me. The last thing I would ever want, the last thing that would crush my spirit is to ever think that my precious wife, Cindy, sitting on the front row, that if I was to say something at our small group from a stage here or talking to somebody, to ever see her have a look like, that's not true, he doesn't live it, that would kill me. And folks, look at me close. Well, we're talking about looks. So look up here and stop rolling your eyes. Okay, listen for a second, because this is important. If that was to ever happen, it's not me going to her, don't you roll your eyes, don't you look straight. That's not, if I want to die, then I say that, okay? So I say that if I want to see Jesus, but I'm not yet, okay? But can I tell you what that is? If I see that happening, because what that tells me, wordless words, what that tells me is he doesn't live that, he's exaggerating. That's not true. Folks, if I ever see that happen to my wife, it's my job to find out and to correct that stuff in me and fix me so she can look at me with a look of honor. It's not me going like, stop looking, it's me going, what's wrong with me? Gaze into my heart, oh God. And if you as a husband sit there and see your wife roll her eyes, don't you sit there and go, man, you got to stop. You go, baby, what do you see in me? What is contradicting what I'm saying? I need you to look at me, because we'll blame everybody else. Remember, start with God. That means you start with you. That's what the looks mean. And here's Michal just looking down with this look of contempt. And instead of David going, what is it? What did I do? What needs to be corrected in me? David shoots back. And that's what starts the second thing. Let me give you the second thing, the wordless word that we need to pay attention to, which is tones. Oh my goodness. Verse 20, the tone of what she said. I was reading the story about the woman that was traveling. Her and her husband didn't have really a healthy relationship. It was from tact and tones. He just said stuff, whatever came to his mind. Some of you know people like that. So she was gone on a trip, so she called home and she just goes, hey, just calling to check in overseas, just want to see how things are going. He just goes, dog died. She goes like, seriously? She goes, I love that dog. She says, the two things that she loved was the dog and her mother-in-law, her mom that was living with her. She just goes, seriously, the dog died. She says, well, it's true, he died. He goes, well, there's a better way to say that. He goes, well, how do you want me to say it? She goes, at least maybe better tone and extend the story a little bit. Like, just say something like this. If I call, just say the dog was on the roof. And then maybe the next time I call, the dog fell off and he's at the vet not doing too well. And then maybe the third time I call, just go, hey, sorry to let you know that the dog died. It's just that simple. Just the roof, then go to the vet, and then, I'm so sorry, the dog died. She says, yeah, got it. He goes, well, how's mom? Mom's on the roof. It's not a very good conversation. You know what's crazy? One study said that 10% of all of our conflicts is due to difference of opinion. 90% is due to tone and delivery of the situation. Is that crazy? Listen, 10% of the conflict is because you disagree over something. 90% is someone didn't take the time and care to deliver it the right way. That means we're not even fighting over the what, but we're fighting over the how we're saying it. My goodness. Think about what Michal is doing here in this verse. If I could just have, I said this and it slipped out in the last verse, and I said, if I could just have a cassette, and I go, cassette? What am I thinking? This is 2018, who listens to cassettes? If I can just have the actual voice of Michal saying what she did, how many know there'd be a tone in that voice? Here's what she said, verse 20. Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, how many know, the finger is up and the head is going back and forth, how the king has distinguished himself today. He uncovered himself in the eyes of his servant maids as one of the foolish ones shamelessly uncovers himself. Okay, let me just tell you something. You know that's how she was saying it. Some of you going like, tones. Okay, listen to me close. Tones are wordless words, and know what they do? They take right words and infects them with contempt. See, tones give truth statements. Listen to me close. It says the truth, but the way it says it, it's saying something else underneath it. Hey, what do you mean, Pastor Tim? Cindy can go to me. She says, "Now, we made a mistake here. Do you understand?" "Oh, I understand." Okay, listen to the tone. Because it's a true statement, I understand what you're saying, but, "Oh, I understand." Now I'm saying, "Oh yeah, I got this. I understand." Like, you know everything. How about this one? It goes like this in a marriage. How the kids doing? "Your children have problems." Now, it could be true, but the emphasis on if we didn't bring those kids over today, and all of a sudden, and we got this blended family, and you've just messed up everything. Think of the tone, because that messes things up. Because what tones do, it infects true statements, it infects them with contempt. It begins to say something that is so important. And our society, I'm telling you, when you just look at all that happened in DC, we live in a society that would rather explode than persuade people. They would rather just scream at each other instead of finding a way to persuade people. I have to say this to you. The last couple of times I was up north, and all my life, except these last 3 years, I've lived up north, and you're just so used to can I just say this? You guys are so nice down here. You really, I always say you guys, I should say y'all are really nice. That was hard. I'm not used to the draw. So y'all are nice down here. You really are. I'm just telling you. I mean, it's like, you guys are so kind, and we've lost that in society. We don't know how to do that. Solomon realized that. Listen to this verse in Proverbs 16:21. Solomon says, "The wise in heart will be called understand." And look at this. "Sweetness of speech increases persuasiveness." Man, that's good. Sweetness of speech, which means learn a way to say it kindly. Learn a way. You take the responsibility. Instead of putting it on other folks going, "You got to listen to me," find a way to say it correctly. Find a way that it can be interpreted the right way. Find a way to be persuasive with your children, with your spouse, or if you're preaching. In fact, he says, one of the versions says this, "And speaking sweetly to others makes teaching even more convincing." Man, I want to make sure I do it right. Do you know what I think would have gone better for Michal? Is not her screaming at David. I think if she would have found a way, I don't think David was going like, "Well, we got problems, let's go to marital counseling." I don't think David was saying that. Because David doesn't respond back. David responds the same way. She goes, "Oh, how the king has this thing." And with the same tone, he looks and says, "I'm doing this before God." Think, how ugly is that? He's using religious things. You're not taking care of things. You just think, and he's going, "I'm on a mission for Jesus. I was on a missions trip. I did this. I was at the church. I was delivering stuff. I'm in a small group." You want to go, seriously? I don't think that's sweetness of speech. I don't think it's too persuasive. And to find a way, I just have this sense, not putting it on Michal, but just to say, finding a way to speak, or David responding with sweetness of speech. Let me give you the final one. Wordless words can be looks. Wordless words from Michal and David are tones. And the final one is this. Wordless words to pay attention to is silence. Shh. How many know silence can say a whole bunch? Married couple were in a fight, and the way that they fought was they just stopped talking to each other and gave each other the silent treatment. This went on for days, and finally, in the middle of their argument, the husband needed to leave on a business trip to Chicago because he had a business meeting and had to get up at 5 a.m. So instead of talking to his wife, he wrote her a note and said, "Please wake me up at 5 a.m. Missed his flight the next day, woke up at 9 a.m., and then broke the silence and started screaming at his wife. He says, "You were supposed to wake me up," and she showed him the note. "It's 5 a.m., please wake up." Really didn't help very much. Let me tell you the part of the story that bothers me about this David-Michal exchange. Here's the part that bothers me. The part that bothers me is that nothing was said after the blow-up. It was just covered over. That's the part that bothers me. So, Michal, man, you distinguish yourself. Look at you dancing around here. You're dancing around. We got problems in the home. We got problems in the marriage, and you're dancing around celebrating. "I did this for God." Man, I brought the Ark of the Covenant back. Why aren't you celebrating? And then it stops. And here's what's crazy, folks. The last verse ends like this. Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child to the day of her death. Okay, stop for a second. I'm not trying to be crass, and I'm not trying to step over the line, but let me just say this. We know how babies come. And when you don't resolve relationships, then you ruin intimacy in your marriage. Do you know why they had no more babies? It's because they never resolved the arguments. And some of you are wondering why. You're thinking like, no, you have to do this, and I'm your husband, and you want to, and we don't even take the time to fix disagreements and wonder why there's no intimacy in our marriages. We don't even resolve anything. See, true intimacy is the fruit of a marriage that has chosen to deal with things and chosen to deal with conflicts. That's the true fruit of marriage. When I hear of couples having intimacy problems, I always realize that there are heart problems close by that are unresolved. Because the danger is this. Let me just say this to couples or anybody in an argument. We think we're done after we both tell our sides of the story. Nothing could be further from the truth. So here she's going like this. You look foolish dancing around. I'm doing this for God. Boop, over. Man, it's far from over. It's far from over. And all of a sudden, intimacy is hurt. She doesn't get pregnant anymore. It's done. And I'm just telling you, this is a train wreck. If you think I said my thing, you said your thing, we're done. I like what G.K. Chesterton said. He said, if you want to have the last word in an argument, apologize. That's how you can have the last word. Apologize. Because this is what we'll do. So when they were done yelling at each other, silence comes in. Never dealing with it. Now, folks, listen, let me tell you, silence is a wordless word. You know what silence communicates? Control and manipulation. It says, I'm going to control the thermostat in the room, and we'll talk when I want to talk, and we'll say stuff when I want to say stuff. Folks, let me just tell you something. It is manipulation and control. If you're not going to deal with it, anything wrong? Nope. I understand this. I understand silence. And let me tell you why. That was my weapon in my marriage. I'm pastoring a church, and whenever Sydney and I would get into a disagreement, I'm not an angry person. I'm not going like, it's just not me. I'm not running into things. I know there's guys who put fists through walls and driving 90 miles. Okay, I'm not proud of this. I act like a girl when I get angry. I'm just telling you right now. I act like a lady. I'm a lady man. Yeah, you heard that on the webcast. I'm a lady man. So here's what happens. It goes like this. So when I'm upset with what Cindy has done to me, you know what I do? Bring the stern. I get quiet. Tim, is there anything wrong? No. Did I do anything to offend you? No, you've done nothing. And seriously, I act like a lady. And so I'm just walking her, and all the ladies are upset with me. You know how we're like. And so all of a sudden, I started with God, and if I start with God, I'm starting with who? Me. So I went to God about Cindy. God, deal with her. Deal with that rebellious woman. God, speak to her heart. You know she's out of line. And listen, and when I went to God, and when you start with God, you start with you. And God said this, you're a manipulator, and you're extracting revenge because you're trying to control everything. So what you're trying to do is listen to me folks, you're wanting her to feel what she just did to you. And you are manipulating that conversation now. And you've decided, until you feel it enough. Anything wrong? Nope. I had to go to her, listen to me close. I had to go to her and apologize and say, I'm a manipulator, and it's immature for me to try to resolve a relationship waiting for you. Let me tell you why I was being silent. I was wanting her to come crawling to me to apologize for what she's done. Folks, I feel gross saying it. I feel disgusting saying it, thinking that I would think that way. I'm supposed to be pastoring a church. Live for Jesus. Oh, Cindy. What is that? How manipulative. It's revenge. I'm trying to bring revenge on her. The woman I love, the second most important relationship on the planet. And I'm trying to go, and there's nothing wrong. And this is what happens. And all of a sudden, intimacy is destroyed. So let me close with this. Isn't it interesting that the Bible refers to our relationship with Christ as a marriage? Think about that. What's crazy is you don't have a real marriage to Christ if you don't take care of the issues. And there is one big issue between us and Jesus, and it's called sin. See, what we find ourselves doing, which is so much easier, folks, what we find ourselves doing is many of us have found ourselves dating Jesus on the weekends. You know what that means? Every Sunday, not Friday nights, Sundays. Ding dong, I'm here, Jesus. Dressed up, got money for the plate, paying like I'd pay for a date. Come in, you wear your best, you look good. Some of you showered, some didn't. Some shaved, some didn't. Whatever it is. Now today we let the face grow, shave the head. We've got it all taken care of. Let me just tell you this. Listen close. And we date Jesus. We come in, and then when we're done, pay the money, boom, close the door, walk out, and we go do whatever we want for the next 6 days until Sunday comes and we come back for a date. That's not a relationship. That's called religion. That's religion. Okay, so let me explain it to you this way. This is so important. God wants a relationship with you in his home. God's home is not the church. God's home is heaven. And in order to live in his home, because he's not going to let there be some crazy relationship like David and Michal, he's going to deal with the issues. And in order to live in his home, you got to take care of the issue. Okay, you ready for this? Jesus wants to get you there, but Jesus didn't die for you to go to church. Jesus died so you can go to heaven. That's why Jesus died. Because you can have the junk and show up at church, but listen to me close. You can have sin in your life and go to church, but you can't live in God's home forever if you don't take care of the sin issue. You have to deal with that issue. That's the part that he wants to deal with. Jesus died so you can live forever with him, but you have to take care of the issue. He's not going to let you go on and treat this with contempt. He goes, you need to understand this sin issue we need to deal with. Well, how do we deal with it, Pastor Tim? How do we get to heaven? How do I get there? Here's what Jesus said. Jesus said it like this. Jesus said, I'm going to tell you how to get to heaven. I'm telling you the truth. Jesus said that. No one can see the kingdom of God unless they're a Protestant. Oh, no, that's not it. No one can see the kingdom of God unless you're Catholic. Nope, doesn't say that either. No one can see the kingdom of God unless you're Baptist. Doesn't say that. Doesn't say Methodist. It doesn't say Presbyterian. But it must say no one can see the kingdom of God unless they're baptized. Doesn't even say that. No one can see the kingdom of God unless you took one of those pieces of crackers and a glass of juice and drank that. Then you can. Doesn't even say that. It doesn't even say no one can see the kingdom of heaven unless you're a good person. It doesn't say that. Some of you are going like, ooh, I qualify for that one. It says you must be born again. That's what takes care of the sin issue. Pastor Tim, how does that happen? Man, because from my marriage, relation, I need to deal with this stuff. Here's what happens. It's as simple. How do I become born again? Because it's as simple as you had a first birth, you need a second birth, according to John 3:3. This is Jesus' words. Then how does that happen? It's as simple as ABC. A, I admit I'm a sinner. It's a sin issue. That has to be taken care of between me and God. The sin issue. How do I take care of it? What do I do? Just get better? You can't get good enough to fix the sins that you've committed. But good news for you today. God sent his son to fix the sin issue in your life. That makes me excited. The reason why Jesus came and died is to fix every sin and to forgive every sin that you would ever commit, and says, I want you to go to heaven. I want you today to know that when you die and go to heaven, we're having a marriage relationship. Religion says show up on Sundays and date me. Relationship says, I want to be part of your life every single day. And when you die, I want to be part of your life forever. And C means confess him as Lord. I want you to bow your head with me, please. And I want to close in prayer. Jesus didn't die for you to go to church. Jesus died for you to go to heaven. How does that happen, Pastor Tim? I want to pray a born again prayer. If Jesus said you have to be born again, I want to pray a prayer that asks Jesus to come into our heart and to be birthed in our lives. And if you're here today, you don't have to get anything fixed to pray this prayer. You don't have to get anything taken care of outside. You can literally come with all baggage and everything. Marriage doesn't have to be fixed and everything, but when you invite him in your life, boy, he starts changing stuff, which is amazing. I want to pray that second birth, that born again prayer. And if you're here today and say, Pastor Tim, man, I don't want to live a life just going to church. I want to know when this life is over, I had a relationship with God, that he was with me every day, and I've gone to heaven. That's called being born again. If you want to pray that prayer with me today and say, Pastor Tim, I want to be part of that prayer when you pray that prayer today. I'm not going to make you stand. I'm not even going to make you walk forward. I won't embarrass you that way. But I am going to ask you to do this because I think it's important for you to acknowledge, I want to start a journey today to know God. If that's you today, this is not becoming a member of OSC. This is not being a Protestant or a Catholic. This is just saying, God, I want to start a new walk with you. I don't want to date you anymore. I want a relationship with you. And if you're here today and say, Pastor Tim, when you pray that born again prayer, put me in it. I want to be part of that prayer. I want to be born again and start my journey today. If that's you, without any hesitation, would you just hold your hand up and say, put me in that prayer? Hold it up high, because I want to make sure I see every hand that's up in this place. Keep them up high, because I want to make sure I count them and see it. I'm going to start from my right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep them up. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Got you back there. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Keep them hands up. 26, 27, 28. That's fantastic. You can put your hand. 29. Got you over there. You can put your hands down. Hey, can we all pray this together right now? Say these words with me. Dear Lord Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God. I believe that on the cross, you took my sin, my shame, and my guilt, and you died for it. You faced hell for me so I wouldn't have to go. You rose from the dead to give me a place in heaven, a purpose on earth, and a relationship with your Father. Today, Lord Jesus, I turn from my sin to be born again. God is my Father. Jesus is my Savior. The Holy Spirit is my helper. And heaven is my home. In Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Come on, can you put your hands together for those 28 folks?